Hey, hey.
What up?
Oh, you know. The usual.
Is it case files without technical difficulties?
Welcome, everyone, to another week of Case Files.
With Kat.
And Ashley. And we're here.
Guess
Maybe.
what?
What?
Hey, Laszlo, guess what?
What?
We're drinking the same thing.
I know.
What are we drinking? We are drinking Delirium Tremens.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's how I
say
say
that. It's from a family brewery in Belgium.
Oh, it's always so good.
I know, it is so good. And we are both loving it.
Yeah.
And for the first time.
Yes, the first time we are. I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we're drinking, maybe not the first time. We might have had the same thing. But no, like this is a very fancy beer. You have to drink it.
I'm drinking it from a very fancy glass, guys. She gave me a super fancy little glass over here. Little tulip.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You don't have a fancy glass. Why'd you give me the fancy one?
Because that's the only one I fucking know.
You should have taken the fancy one.
No. The fancy stuff's for guests.
Did you do anything exciting for St. Patrick's Day?
Besides forget? No, we were in Dallas for a couple of days to see my niece.
Oh, okay, fun.
We played a lot of board games.
I went tea house hopping.
Hopping.
And then I ended the night with a heating pad on my back. It was so wild.
Did you put together some more shelves?
I didn't put together shelves this weekend. But like I said, I went to different tea rooms and tea houses and places that serve different kinds of tea.
You're officially.
And then I went home and I popped a prescription ibuprofen and put my heating pad on my back and I went to bed.
That's hysterical, and I'm sorry you were in pain. I know the feeling. I forgot any of my herbs.
Yeah.
Going into Dallas, so that was not fun for sleeping because I was just awake.
Yeah.
Because I think that what they do is they take like a slab of concrete that's in the shape of a bed.
Yes.
And then they put like a mattress cover, so it has a like the illusion of being soft, but then as soon as you sit on it or lay down, it's just like solid
There's
rock.
very few hotels I've been in where the beds have been comfortable.
I'm like, this is and then the pillows weren't great, and I didn't sleep. I didn't sleep at all. And so by the time I came home, I was like, pop in a 10 milligram, and I'm getting in my own bed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I won a Toastmaster speech contest.
Whoop, whoop.
Thank you. Round of applause.
Round of applause.
Hold on. Oh, I need to do
don't we
that.
have a sound effect?
Oh, that was like lame. So I didn't have the here.
Yeah.
That's right. So I'm on to the Division P Toastmasters contest next. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Someday she's going to be too famous to be the host on this show, guys, so start sending in your applications.
Not. Oh my gosh.
It would be helpful if your name is also Kat.
Do you think people will still listen to us when we're only doing tea rooms, speech contests, and...
We should actually do this from a tea room.
I actually got a little migraine cap that you put in the freezer and you put it over your head because it's all cold and icy. Isn't that wonderful? Doesn't that just sound wonderful?
We are so old. So old and decrepit.
Okay, so what you got?
Okay.
Because we've lost everybody. Hey.
Hey. So I went back to my true favorites. I'm doing a Disappearance. Surprise. It's a mixture of things.
Okay.
It's partially Disappearance. It is technically an unsolved mystery because some of the stuff that happened. And then something really positive came from it. So I'm just gonna dive in.
Yeah, don't keep us waiting.
So William Paul Smolinski Jr., who went by the nickname Billy, went missing in August 2004. While initially law enforcement thought he left on his own, foul play is now suspected. So Billy was 31 and he lived in Waterbury, Connecticut. He was last seen by his neighbor on August 24th, 2004.
I know where Waterbury is.
Oh, fancy. I didn't know. At the time, he was a tow truck driver. He worked at a heating and cooling company, and he also drove a bus, like a school
Oh my
bus.
gosh, that's a lot of jobs.
So he owned a home where he lived with his best friend Harley, who was his German Shepherd.
Oh,
He took Harley everywhere with him, and that's an important thing to remember. Everywhere he went, his dog went. Okay.
oh,
So he was dating an older woman named Madeline Gleason, who also turned out to be involved with another man.
love triangle.
So Billy's mom described him as having been a very active kid. Even as an adult, he was very active. He was just as an adult, he was just your regular blue collar type of person. He had a really good heart. He was working 3 jobs to make ends meet, and he just overall really loved life, loved his family, loved his dog, like right out of a country song, right? He had a pickup truck.
Stop it.
He had his own property. He had a dog that he loved, and
Named Harley.
Yeah, Harley. Like, he was just a genuinely good person.
Yeah.
So days before Billy disappeared, he and his girlfriend Madeline had gotten into this argument. Okay, and when I say she's older, she's 16 years older than him.
Damn.
She had 5 kids from other marriages. So they got into this argument, but they had already planned a trip. So let me back up. So they actually met driving school buses for the same company, BB Transportation. So they both were school bus drivers. That's how they met. They fell in love. Days before he disappeared, they had this argument about something. They had already planned a trip, so they were going to still go on this trip. So his family, and I'll talk more about that trip in a minute, but his family did not like her. In a Newsweek interview, his father, William Smolinski Sr., was quoted saying, "I don't know how the hell he came up with this girl. Boy, I'll tell you, we weren't too crazy about her." They didn't trust her. They thought she was shady. They didn't understand why someone of her age would be so interested in their son.
Because he was cute. I mean, totally like just a blue collar. I mean, you got a cute. It doesn't matter like how cute, but if you're like loving on your dog, or you're gonna be extra working hard,
had his own property and stuff.
Oh, right.
So around the time of
average looking, it's not ugly. It's not ugly. All right.
Around the time of Billy's disappearance, Madeline was grieving the loss of her 18-year-old daughter, Crystal, who had died by suicide on May 1st, 2004. So Billy and Madeline had been dating long-term at this point, and their relationship was quickly turning sour because Billy found out that Madeline had been talking to a married man. He was the owner of the school bus company. His name was Chris Sorson.
She was not cute.
Yeah, she looked rough.
She looked rough. That hair. Sorry. I mean, you know what? I don't know.
Like, I don't like to judge other people, but she looks rough.
She looks like his mom.
Yeah.
She looks like his mom. Yeah. Because his face is still babyish.
Yeah. He did look wrong. He was only 31 at this point.
Yeah. His face is still, he doesn't have a wrinkle on him, and she's got a few.
So Chris was a politician in the town. He was a selectman for Waterbury. And it was widely believed that they had an affair, although it wasn't actually confirmed at the time of the disappearance. So, again, Billy and Madeline were still dating. Things were getting messy. They had this trip planned. And so Billy and Madeline set out on August 21st for a weekend trip to West Palm Beach, Florida, where her son, Thomas Karpiuk Jr. worked as a security job. And so before her son,
so one of her 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of her 5.
One of her 5 is, so one of her 5 has died.
Right. One lives in Florida.
Okay.
Billy was afraid to fly, but he was willing to go on this trip. He had told his mom beforehand he was really afraid of flying, but he wanted to do this for Madeline. He really wanted this to work. But one day into this trip, Billy reportedly caught Madeline talking to someone on the phone in the bathroom.
Oh.
He suspected she was talking to her secret lover. Later on that day at the beach, Billy tried to take her phone to see who she had been talking to, and she started screaming for the police. So they cut their trip short. They returned home to Connecticut late that night.
That sounds
crazy.
Like that escalated quickly.
So this is one night into the trip. They
That's
come
what I'm
back
saying.
the same night. Like the day they had the fight, the first day into their trip, they cut it short.
They haven't even spent the night yet. Oh wow. Okay.
He is obsessed with finding out if there's a love triangle situation going on. So he really wants this to work. Like, for whatever reason, he is obsessed with Madeline. Like, he wants to be in this relationship with her, but he needs to know if there's something really going on. So around 4 a.m. on August 24th, the day he disappeared, he went to Madeline's and used a ladder to climb up to the second story of her home to see if he could catch her with somebody.
Oh.
Before he could get to the second floor, though, Madeline saw him. She came out. She said, "Come inside. What are you doing?" So she let him in. According to her, she says they argued over getting back together. He wanted to rekindle things, but she didn't. She didn't want this relationship. She said it was too much. So she says that he left. And when he left, she said he was very distraught. He was very amped up. So again, this is all on the day that he disappeared. So after he leaves her house, at some point during that day, he made 3 calls to Chris, the man that Madeline was allegedly having an affair with. After hanging up without leaving a message on the first 2 calls, Billy left a haunting voicemail on the last call that said, "Chris, do me a favor. Watch your back. You need to watch your back at all times." And
is this true? Like, they've got a
yeah,
copy
they
of
have
that?
they've played it, and the cops verified it was Billy. So in court, Chris testified that he never saw Billy that day. He just received this voicemail from him. It was discovered that prior to these phone calls to Chris, that Billy had contacted one of his former girlfriends to invite her on a trip to Six Flags the next weekend. So to me, that was kind of weird, like a jump from being obsessed with Madeline, going and having this fight, and then he calls his ex-girlfriend to go on a trip the following weekend.
But is that, I mean, so they verified that though?
This was according to police reports.
Well, I mean, they would have had to then see his phone records.
Yeah, so I'm assuming they saw the number, probably called her. It didn't really explain how they knew that, but there were receipts for other things around this time, so I assume they had proof that this happened.
Well, I don't believe Madeline's story.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Okay.
So around 3 p.m., he drove to a local Burger King and purchased 2 hamburgers and fries, and they know this because there were receipts found in the trash can inside his home. He deposited most of his last paycheck into the bank prior to his disappearances. Oh my gosh, I cannot speak. Prior to his disappearance. However, his bank account, they've never been accessed since then. Billy went to see his neighbor, Roy, around 5 p.m. before he vanished. He told him about his breakup with Madeline and asked Roy to watch his dog because he was going up north for 3 days. Billy had told him the key was hidden in a shoe outside of his home.
He went everywhere. Okay.
So when the neighbor went to check on Harley the next morning around 9 a.m., the house was locked with the dog inside, and he realized that Billy hadn't left the key. So he called Billy's ex-girlfriend, Mary Ellen, and told her he couldn't get into the house to feed the dog, and asked if she had a spare key, which she didn't. And so in an interview with Billy's father states over and over that Billy would never leave his dog with anybody. His family did not believe. They believed the neighbor, right?
Okay,
they believed
the neighbor saying, "Yeah, he asked me to do this."
Yeah, he said the key would be outside, and he went there, and the dog was inside. So he calls the ex-girlfriend. The ex-girlfriend ends up reaching out to the family, and that's when the family was like, "What? Why would he leave his dog? Where is he?" So supposedly Billy was going to look at a car, which did not make sense to his family because he had a truck. He did not have a need for another car, but he had told his neighbor he was going up north for 3 days to look at a car. Yes.
Who was watching the dog when he went to Florida?
I'm assuming his parents, because they had to fly.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So somebody,
dog,
he did leave the dog at one point with somebody else.
But it was like a trusted.
Okay.
Like, he wouldn't have
Okay.
taken a road trip by himself without taking the dog. The reason he didn't take the dog to Florida is because they had to fly.
Right. Okay.
But if he was in the car, if he was in the truck, if he was going somewhere around town, he had his dog. If he was going on a road trip, he had his dog. No matter what he was doing, he would not have trusted his dog to the neighbor.
Okay.
And so Janice, Billy's mother, she said she knew immediately there was something wrong. His family said this behavior was so out of character for Billy. They just knew. And so they call the police, and their first contact with law enforcement is very underwhelming, and no large-scale search was done because, again,
He's a grown-ass man.
adults, according to law, can technically leave whenever they wish, and they don't have to tell anyone where they're going, what they're doing, when they'll return. Can I just say how proper your cat looks sitting in the chair? Like, he's like truly acting like he's a guest right now. Like, he's just really into this podcast. Thank you
He looks so regal.
I really hope all of you guys are listening to me as intently as this cat is right now. Okay, so anyways, sorry. So the police say, he's an adult, he can do whatever. The police tell them they had to wait 3 days and that he was probably fine and would just return on his own.
I've seen that somewhere else, waiting 3 days.
For adults, you're supposed to wait 3 days. Like, that was technically the law back then.
But so that did change, though. Okay, I know
Yeah.
you're going to get to stuff later, but
So
I feel like it doesn't matter.
you have to wait like 72 hours or whatever to
I
report
just feel
adult.
like it shouldn't matter, I don't
Yeah.
know.
So I'm going to play a clip that describes what his parents were going through, kind of the lack of help from the police, and some really strange behavior by Madeline, all which the police did absolutely nothing about at the time. I know it's a shock. So let me play this first clip for you.
We knew that 3 days was too long, so we started doing things ourselves.
We went to where
These
he
are his
works
parents talking.
and waited there in the parking lot, see if he's going to go to work, and he never showed up. After a couple days that went by, we knew that he would never do this.
The following week, which was Labor Day weekend, we got together. It was about 300 people that helped us search for a couple days. No police to help us, so we did it ourselves.
We went day and night, almost all night, until we couldn't see anymore. But we wanted answers because nobody else was giving us answers, because we used to go by the house all the time to see if anybody was there. And one night we went down there, and it was late at night, and we saw the lights were on.
It's midnight on Friday. 72 hours later, after they contacted the police, they go to Billy's house. Who do they find in there? Madeline's in the house. And so they were chatty with her, but there's, like, as you piece it all together later on, what is she doing in that house? They're broken up.
And this wasn't the first time that Madeline had been at Billy's house after he disappeared. She was here only a few hours after he disappeared. She came here with her best friend.
So after that clip, the reporter that was speaking calls a lady named Fran. Fran is Madeline's best friend. She told the investigator that they went to Billy's house that morning and didn't know he was missing. Supposedly, Madeline was just looking for him to speak to him. She said that they used the key that was in the shoe, which he had left for the neighbor, to get in the house to feed the dog. She knew about this key, and she used it to get into the house. And when the reporter said, well, what did y'all do with the key? Fran says, oh, we left it on the counter or something, like a table. But according to Billy's parents and the police, that key has never been found, and it wasn't left at the house. And also, basically, so you went there to look for him. He wasn't there, so you just entered his house? Like, what the fuck? And why did you take a friend with you? You know what I mean? Like, the whole circumstance was weird.
So, wait, so they felt uncomfortable about the ex-girlfriend and not about Madeline? Or, wait, I'm confused.
What?
So who's Fran?
Fran is Madeline's best friend.
Oh, right. Okay. Because I remember the neighbor asked the ex-girlfriend.
So the neighbor asked Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen was Billy's ex-girlfriend.
Red string. Okay.
And And he had asked her if she had a spare key to the house because he was trying to get in for the dog. Mary Ellen is the one that contacted the parents.
Right. Okay.
You know,
Got it.
they had no problem with her. Their problem was with Madeline.
Got it.
Fran and Madeline are best friends. Fran is the one that told this investigative reporter that they went to the house. Madeline used the key to get in. According to her, they were just there to look for him, which I don't know. If I'm looking for someone and I don't think they're missing, I'm not just going to enter their house. Like, it'd be like if I came over here and just walked in. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay, just making sure. Remember when we did that for somebody? We were like, we just need to get a check on you. Do I need to send police?
Well,
I need a welfare check.
I mean, there's one thing to call the police and I'm going to do a welfare check.
I wouldn't just show up.
But even if you did, right? She claims they didn't think he was missing.
But they still went
into the house.
And then went into the house. That's very weird.
So Fran claims they left this key, so they locked the door behind them, which is why the neighbor could not find the key when he went to check on the dog, which if the timeline is correct... Are you okay?
I lost your mind.
So if the timeline is correct and the neighbor did go over there at 9, that means Fran and Madeline were over there at like way early, like before... You know what I mean? Like before 9 a.m. Because the neighbor didn't find the key at 9.
And why would you go in at that point?
And if you didn't see his truck. Anyways, so
they were trying to seem less suspicious by being like, well, we went in and we were checking. And
also missing from the house, though, were his guns. And they have never to this day been found. So according to his parents, he had a rifle and like a handgun, and those were missing from the house. They were never found. They were not on his vehicle or in his vehicle. There was no reason for them to be missing. So 2024 would be 20 years since he's disappeared. So in a side note, you remember how I said when his parents first called the police, they said, oh, wait, 3 days, he'll probably come back and be fine. So when the local newspaper, the Waterbury Observer, asked the deputy chief of the Waterbury Police Department about the case after a year or so of Billy being missing, his response, Billy is probably just having a beer in Europe right now.
What? Yep, sounds like him. 100% sounds like him.
He didn't even have a passport. But, but the police just were not taking this seriously because he was an adult. So anyways, the day he went missing, his pickup truck was found. It was left parked very strangely at the edge of his driveway. There were things thrown all over the seats. His garage had been broken into. Someone had used a hacksaw. His parents had gone back to the house, right? Because they found out. They did not know that Madeline had been at the house at this point. So they go to the house to check on Billy. They find his vehicle parked at the edge of the driveway.
And nobody parks like that.
Right. His truck had been broken into. His garage had been broken into. Someone used a hacksaw to break off the lock.
And they still thought this man was missing? Just like that he just went away on his own
he
and
was
ran away?
drinking beer somewhere.
In Europe.
Yeah. And so at this point, Billy's mom calls the police and says, please come do forensics. There's got to be fingerprints here somewhere. She was sure, because they had rummaged through his stuff. And so they do send a detective out. And according to his mom, the detective found his wallet and the truck keys tucked in underneath his front seat.
Stop it.
But there was stuff spread all around his car. So the detective was like, well, maybe he did that to alert people.
Oh my God.
But,
oh my God.
But they never fingerprinted the truck or anything in the truck.
Hold on. I'm flipping the table. This is ridiculous. Oh my God. What did they need to see? Did they need to see blood? Did they need to see?
So the case was just full of bad tips, civil suits, and red tape. Madeline successfully sued Billy's family for $52,666 in damages, claiming that they harassed her by placing more of his missing persons flyers in her vicinity in an attempt to harass her. So the court at that time actually awarded her these damages, saying that the family crossed the line by placing these missing person flyers on her property. However, after escalation to the Connecticut Supreme Court and multiple years of like these trials, the suit was appealed and she did not have to, like, they did not have to pay her the money. Also, like, how fucked up are you? Like, he's missing.
Incredibly.
And, like, you're suing
Incredibly.
the family because you think they're intentionally harassing you by trying to find their son? What the actual fuck? So, in the months and years that followed, Waterbury police worked the case, which eventually got escalated to the Connecticut State Police and the FBI. The family claimed at the time, and still claims, that they encountered systematic challenges while working with law enforcement to search for their son. So in a lot of, like, the police often wouldn't let them go on searches with them. They would not let them in on any information of the case. Like, they were, a lot of the information they found out, they had to find out for themselves. They were doing their own searches. They were putting up their own flyers. They contacted people. Like, the police were just kind of shutting them out. And so in 2006, the police got a tip.
Like, and that's different, right? Wouldn't you say? I mean, we've done a lot of disappearances on the show, and I feel like there might be an initial hesitation to say that it's a disappearance, or put all your eggs into that basket and put all the efforts into that, looking for that person.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, like, doesn't the community come together and say, like, police, like, I feel like
The community did come together and was helping the family. The police were the ones that were not.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, that there's pressure from the community for the police to be. I feel like, why are the police being so obstinate? Like, why are they not helping the family?
Yeah.
Like, why box them out?
Yeah.
From the effort?
Yeah.
Why not get their help? Why push them away when they could be your greatest asset?
Yeah.
You know, in free labor. You know, like, you don't have to give them all the stuff, but.
Yeah.
We've done enough stories where it's like, if it weren't for this family member, the police would have never solved the crime.
Right. So the family has never stopped looking, never given up.
And they won't. They never will. Like, that's the sad part.
Yeah. In 2006, the police got a tip about Sean Karpiuk, which was Madeline's other son. The tip said that he may have killed Billy because supposedly Billy had beaten Madeline up. Now, that was never proven if he beat her up. Okay. The tip claimed that Sean and another man named Jason Lee then buried Billy at one of the sites that Sean had been working at. Sean and Jason were both landscapers. They were also both drug addicts. The tip stated that they dug a hole and buried Billy in a spot that had concrete, and like in a spot that concrete was then poured over. The police were never able to verify that. On what would have been Billy's 40th birthday, a key suspect in the case named Chad Hansen made false claims and tips about Billy's burial site, causing $100,000 in police resources. He led the police on an unsuccessful 10-day search in Oxford.
Oh my gosh.
He had also given information to the police before that was also proven to be false surrounding the case. He was the one that gave the tip about Sean and Jason. In 2007, a tipster, which ended up also being Chad, a tipster told police that Chad Hansen and Sean said Billy got what he deserved, and they buried him in the ground in Shelton. Another witness told police in 2008 that Chad bragged that he and Sean killed Billy, and police would never find his body, and had mentioned a barrel and a couple of bags of lime. Police interviewed Chad in 2008, and in that interview, Chad stated he did not kill Billy, but he did help Sean bury the body. Chad then led police to a property in Seymour where Hansen said he had helped bury a barrel though he told police he did not realize at the time Billy was inside it. The police conducted a search of this property as well. And Chad was there directing the crews to the alleged site of the body. However, according to the warrant, while investigators searched an area the size of a football field, there was no sign of human remains nor a barrel being located. So this is like the 5th or 6th report that Chad has made about a location.
How is he not getting like arrested for that?
So we're getting there. Okay. During a later interview with police in 2008, Chad said he lied to police and did not know where the body of Billy was buried.
Shocker!
In 2010, he gave another false report saying that Billy was buried in a state forest. Jeez. Authorities believe that he deliberately lied to them in order to mislead the investigation. Mm-hmm. In 2013, he pleaded guilty to one charge of making false statements and was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. Chad and Sean were the main and really only suspects in the case at this time. Sean was Madeline's son, and Sean had passed away from a drug overdose at the age of 27 in 2005 before he could ever be interviewed by the police. So he died less than a year, but so far there's 5 kids. One killed herself. One died of a drug overdose. One's living in Florida. They never mentioned the other 2. So I feel like there's a problem at home, right? Like one moves as far away as they can. One kills herself and one dies of a heroin overdose.
Kills himself.
Yeah. And so I feel like she was there, that home life, there had to have been something happening when they were growing up that just because, like, what the hell? Like, I don't know. Anyways, so Chad had filed many reports between 2005 and 2011. They all varied, but the one thing that was consistent was that Chad had helped Sean bury something. Chad and Sean were known drug users, and his testimony was often brought under question due to his own drug usage and his very questionable credibility because his story kept changing. So I'm going to play this other clip real quick. I just got to get to it because Hulu does not make it easy to go in between clips.
In one of the statements, Chad wrote that he and Sean drove to Oxford. He wrote Sean had 2 shovels and one pickaxe.
Sean and I then started to dig a shallow trench. I had a bad feeling that I shouldn't have got myself involved in helping Sean. Sean and I went back to his truck where there was a blue aerial carpet rolled up. Sean and I then removed the carpet from the truck and carried to the hole we just dug and placed the carpet inside. Sean then asked me to go retrieve the bucket of lime. Sean took the bucket and poured it on the carpet. Sean and I then started to backfill the hole. I knew at that time that we just buried something, possibly a body, because the carpet was damp and had a smell that I can never forget. Sean later told me that he had a fight with Billy and that it got out of control and wished he could take everything back that happened. Sean started talking about how he accidentally killed Billy during their confrontation and that he used his hammer out of rage.
So, like I mentioned, Chad was sentenced to prison for lying. The police weren't sure exactly which part he was lying about. Was it the locations? Was it the motive? Was it all of it? An investigative reporter spoke to one of Chad's old bosses, and his name was Mark, and he told her that during the time Billy went missing, Chad had made some really off-the-wall, strange comments to him. So one of the things the family had done is they had billboards all up and down the interstates and stuff, like missing, looking for Billy. And Mark said that one day while him and Chad were driving to a work site, there was a billboard about Billy missing, and he had made a comment about how sad it was and how much effort the family was putting into finding Billy, to which Chad said to him, "They'll never find him." And Mark said, "What? Do you know something about this?" And Chad replied, I don't want to talk about it. And then he started
Not suspicious at all.
And then he goes on, even though he doesn't want to talk about it, he then goes on to tell Mark that he's buried real deep, deeper than they'll ever look. And so, of course, Mark said something to the police about it, but I mean, there's no body and Chad has already told them so many false locations. So they just didn't know what to do at this point. So while that's happening, let me tell you about what Billy's parents had accomplished during all of this time. So Janice and William knew that they had to do something positive out of this. It said, "We have tried to change the system so no family would have to endure this anguish that we have lived through these past 5 years." Together, they worked to create the Help Finding the Missing Act, also known as Billy's Law. It aimed to close loopholes in America's missing persons systems. They worked with Senator Chris Murphy to help get this law enacted, and it was first introduced in 2009, but actually failed in Congress. The fact that we don't have a centralized database of unidentified remains is really unfortunate, Murphy said. Your loved one could be sitting in a morgue on the other side of the country and you just don't know. Each year, 600,000 people go missing in the U.S., and at the same time, there are 4,400 sets of unidentified human remains recovered, according to the FBI's National Crime Information Center. So Billy's Law would fund a database called, I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think it's NamUs, which stands for National Missing and Unidentified Persons System. Billy's Law would additionally connect this system to the FBI, NCIC, so that those systems would communicate and information would be consolidated. It would require missing adults to be reported to the NamUs, it would create grants to help report create grants to help reporting and require the DOJ to issue guidelines and best practices to help find the missing. These are all the things that often break cases and sometimes solve cases, Waterbury Police Chief Fernando said. And so basically the problem was, like, if someone died in one state but they lived in another, there was no database that connected the states together to say, to find if this missing person matched the DNA that they found in this other state.
So is it connected now?
Well, yes. The bill was reintroduced in 2022, so it had been years. It was originally brought up in 2009, but it didn't pass Congress. But in 2022, this time it was led with support from Congresswoman Jahana Hayes and the support of many others, including the parents of Gabby Petito.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't know who she was a TikTok influencer. What? What?
I want to get to her.
Well, I'm just saying she was a TikTok influencer who died while traveling across the country in 2021. So her parents were very big supporters of this. The Congresswoman was very big supporter of this. The Murphy was still behind it. So in our search to find our son, we encountered a Pandora's box, Janice testified at a congressional hearing. And when we opened it, we unleashed the nightmare plaguing the world of the... Oh. Sorry, the kitty.
Sorry, the cat just attacked her computer. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Did he pull it down?
Yeah.
Oh my God, like he opened it.
Okay, this is serious socks.
He's like, not anymore.
Let me start this
Start that over.
quote again.
Start it.
In our search to find our son, we encountered a Pandora's box, Janice testified at a congressional hearing. And when we opened it, we unleashed the nightmare plaguing the world of the missing and the unidentified dead. The bill was officially passed into law on December 28th, 2022. So it's a very recent bill. The bill supports efforts to solve missing persons cases by closing the gaps in law enforcement databases through improved coordination across federal, state, local, and nonprofit agencies. Billy's Law strengthened cross-communication among agency databases and provided guidance for local law enforcement agencies, medical examiners, and enforcers on how to best handle missing persons cases. This new law will help ensure that across the country, if someone is found missing and their DNA is detected, they can link it to a national database, said Senator Baker. To this day, Billy is still missing, and the family is no closer to any answers. There is a $60,000 reward for any information leading to his whereabouts. They basically just want to find his body so that they can bring him home, because they know that he is at this point not alive. If you know anything about his disappearance, the case is still open with the Waterbury Police Department. You can always call Crime Stoppers, or you can contact the New Haven FBI office. Billy has brown hair and blue eyes and is 6 feet tall. At the time of his disappearance, he was 200 pounds. He has a tattoo of a cross with the name Pruitt on his left forearm and a blue cross with an orange outline on his right shoulder. His left ear was also pierced with a small diamond. We are never going to give up searching for our son, Janice said. We are driven by our faith, and all the mistakes and obstacles we've encountered make us more determined to find the truth and bring Billy home. Sometimes miracles happen, and these little angels guide you along the way. I've been arrested, and I've been sued, and if we were to do it all over again, we would do the exact same thing. Maybe our journey was meant to get the attention of the proper authorities who needed to make a change to help other people. It's now all in God's hands. So they, his parents searched and searched for him. They did not give up. They wanted this law in place. They made it happen. They still have hopes of, they just want to find the body. Chad is no longer in prison. He's actually free. He lives at home with his mother. That investigative reporter did go to his house to try and talk to him, but he wouldn't come outside. His brother came outside, and his brother claimed to know nothing about. He was acting like, "Who's Billy? Why do you want to talk to Chad about Billy?" And mind you, this is after he's already spent time in prison. This is 2022, 2023. You know what I mean? When the investigative reporter's going through all of this, his brother's like, "Was Billy a friend of Chad's?" Get real. He was like, I'm Chad's older brother, and I've never heard of Billy. And the investigative reporter's like, Chad never talked about Billy? So, it was just really weird. There's a Hulu episode. The show is called Missing. And he's in season 3, episode 2, and it's going to be in the resources. But they have some of the investigative reporter in it, and that's where she's talking to his brother, and just the way he's it's just so, she's like, really? He's never...
Billy.
Yeah.
Billy, am I saying that right?
Is he from Waterbury? What is there something wrong with... it's just really odd.
Oh, I totally want to watch that.
Yeah. And
you should have a video of that. That's what you should have.
Yeah, and so it's linked in the notes. And then, but the investigative reporter, she worked for Eyewitness News, and she just did this whole...
Witness News. Sorry.
She did this whole thorough investigation on it, almost more thorough than the fucking actual police. She went and talked to Madeline. She tried to get Madeline on the phone. Madeline just said, "I just want to be left alone." She's like, "I just wanted to break up. I had nothing to do with his disappearance." She's the one that called the best friend, and that's how she found out about the key, because the police didn't even know about the key. And she believes that if they could find that missing key, they could find who did it, because obviously that's the person that broke into the house. But they believe that Madeline had convinced Sean to kill Billy because he found out about this affair and whatever else, and so, but she did a really good job. She's, like I said, she's in this episode, and I've linked to her actual, investigations, but she goes through all of the police reports Chad ever made, and she goes all through them, talks about all of the locations he supposedly said this body was at, and
The truth is in there somewhere.
Yeah.
The truth is in there.
She contacted Chad's former bosses. Like, she did, I'm telling you, she did such a, she did a really
did the police
good
work.
Yeah.
She did the police work.
So I've linked about 13 different stories and resources that you can go look at if you're at all interested in this case. But definitely, there's a disappearance episode. There's the missing episode. There's a lot of different TV shows about it. Yeah, but he's still missing. His family never gave up. So unfortunately, they know he's dead. They know that Sean killed him. They just don't know where, because he was a landscaper. So the theory is that he buried him at some, random location he was familiar with. I mean, he could have put him anywhere. So,
well, that's sad.
Yeah.
Well, I hope they find him, or at least somebody. Like, I feel like someone's gonna have to break.
Yeah.
Like the guilt.
Well, the supposed killer died less than a year after it happened. So they never once interviewed Sean. They never interviewed Madeline's children. So I will say
Chad
that
will give something up. Chad, he seems like an idiot.
well, he has said that they did it, but they just he won't tell them where the body is. He is all but admitted and said that him and Sean did it. He saw Sean kill him with the hammer. They had gotten into this argument and he helped him hide the body. He just won't tell them where the body is. Now, is it because he was high and really doesn't remember where the body was?
He just sounds like an idiot.
But
yeah.
I mean, he kind of is. But yeah, the parents, they did have a daughter who was 3 years younger than Billy, but she wasn't on any of the interviews and stuff that I saw, but she was part of the searches, on all of that. So he did have a younger sister, but
it must just be too hard. Poor
Yeah.
thing. Well, if you guys know anything, call in.
yes.
Call in.
I will say, this is the last thing I'll say, is that investigative reporter, she actually also found a lot of witness reports that were never brought to light. Like she said, there were a group of teenagers that saw in the town that they were hanging out late at night in a parking lot and they saw a strange man carry 2 large bags into an abandoned like building, and they called the police. Nothing happened. There was a girl who said she saw a man carrying what looked like a body into the woods. Nothing ever came of that. And then there was one other report, and I honestly can't remember what the other one was, but it was just as weird that it was never followed.
What?
Never even mentioned to the family. She's the one that told the family about these things. Of course, all of these leads never led anywhere. But anyways, that's my story of Billy's Law and what his parents did and Billy himself. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I don't have any.
I didn't want to do a murder. I know how traumatized you get, even though your stories are fucking
That one was
crazy.
I know, mine are crazy.
But then I do one and it's like, oh my God.
But I don't know. It was something about the children. It was something about the little girls.
I almost did a disappearance that involved Girl Scouts, and I was like, no, I can't do that to her.
Twice in a row. I don't know if it was the Girl Scouts thing.
Well, it was because it involved children. I was like, I can't do that again.
Or
to
if
her,
it was like the idea that maybe it was the idea that those girls were like, no, I don't want to go. But then as a parent, you're like, look, I fucking paid for this. You're gonna fucking go. You know, like
I think it was more of like they got tired of like constantly her back, like they wanted her to have confidence. They wanted her to go do something. You know, it wasn't like get the fuck out of my house.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah. They're not me. They're not me, right? Like that would be my parenting style, which is why I don't have children.
But it's also like, look, we've already decided you were going to do this. It's the summer.
Yeah, we've already paid for it.
You've already set this up. I don't. Would I be like, okay, we'll just get a refund? And like, would I do? Like, I don't know. And so I think there's. Look at that cat.
Look at his little beans.
His little beans. And
They're so
showing
pink.
you his tummy.
Sorry, guys. We are.
Oh, socks. Oh,
We're so very easily distracted.
A chunk. Oh, he's getting so chunky. Anyway,
We're gonna start a new podcast about cats.
We're just gonna pet the cats and sit
Cat Files with Kat and Ashley. That's what we're changing the name to, you guys. Anyways,
and the theme song's all meow 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 meow.
We really have lost everyone now.
Okay, yeah. We'll see you next week.
Bye.